Hello, I'm Linda Seith from The Layered Onion. Thank you for joining us. We will be listening to our amazing creators talk about their art and mental health. 48 million artists all over the world share this lived experience. The Layered Onion was formed to create a supportive community, allowing the creators to focus on their art, bringing their work from the shadows to receive the recognition and opportunities they deserve. Each podcast will feature an artist who talks about their creations and mental wellness. Art is healing. We hope these discussions will inspire you to appreciate the stories behind the creations and, more importantly, inspire your inner creator. Together, we can tackle the stigma surrounding mental health.
Hello, Erin. It's so great to see you.
Thank you.
So tell me, what drew you to art?
I love the pun there. No, I'm joking. You know, I think I started at such a young age. I don't really quite remember starting. I've always been expressive, and my expression was always encouraged. Even when
That is so wonderful, because so many folks I talked to, they were discouraged, not encouraged.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy about that? What's beautiful about that is that even though my parents split up when I was young, they both were still equally very encouraging about my creativity. You know, sometimes it was just like, okay, what's she doing now? But they never just like put a halt to it. Never. They never did that. So I will forever appreciate and be indebted to them for that. And so, you know, from there, it kind of helped me find my own voice. But I would say that my artwork really picked up a lot. And I didn't notice this because I was a kid, but when my parents split, that's when it really picked up. That's when it really, really picked up. For some people, it would die down. But for me, I don't know, subconsciously, I just kept drawing and kept creating, and I was encouraged. And my dad signed me up for the Saturday morning art classes at the Columbus College of Art and Design for kids. And so I remember going in when I was like 8, and they had the still life set up. And I remember it like yesterday. The still life had a fabric that was plaid. It was like white with red and like yellow and orange plaid lines and fruit and a basket. And so I sat and I drew that. And so the kids that would come in by appointment and do their drawings, you had to turn in your drawing for a chance at a scholarship. So I was afforded the full scholarship for the Saturday morning classes. That was the only reason I attended, because we didn't have it like that growing up.
Right.
The only reason I was able to attend was because of the scholarship. So I really tip my hat off to the people over that program at the Columbus College of Art and Design. I never attended as an adult, but that was where my career really started as a kid.
Do you think that you used your art to process your parents' divorce?
I think so. Oh, yeah, very much. Very much, because we had a lot of family photo albums that my dad kept. And I remember, you know, I would look through them and I would see pictures of us together. And I would start to draw those pictures, especially the baby pictures of me and my brother. You know, here I am like 9 and 10 years old, and I would see baby pictures and I thought, well, we were just some cute little babies, weren't we? So, I mean, just cute and fat with a lot of hair, right? So I loved drawing our baby photos. We looked happy and together. And so that was where my love of portraiture began. And I sold my first 3 pieces when I was 11 years old.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. In middle school, just brought them to school one day, and the teachers, a few of the teachers, including my art teacher, whose name slips me, but it was in the Groveport Madison School District. I don't know if you're familiar with Groveport, but my art teacher at the time, I think she bought 2 of them. And then another teacher bought a third. So, and then it became contagious.
Well, that's so exciting, because it sounds like also in school, you had a lot of encouragement.
I did. Yeah, I didn't always feel it with all of my teachers, but when it came to my art, that was the one thing they all agreed on. My behavior, not that I was a bad student, but there was some behavioral issues because my parents split early and there was not room to process. I didn't have therapy. I didn't really have anybody to talk to about it. I had my brother and I had my art. So my brother is a year younger than me. We have the same mom and dad. So we went through it together. Luckily, we had each other. And he had his sports and I had my art.
So when you look back, and did you see any patterns in the art from that period of time?
Except only the portraiture. Like, I loved portraiture. I never really liked drawing animals, plants, houses, just faces, people. I was always drawn to people, but it started with those childhood photos. And like I said, it was all very subconscious. I was mostly by myself when I was drawing. Because I was quiet, nobody really bothered me. Nobody really bothered me because I was just always quiet into myself, until it was time for me to open up. Like, if somebody started talking to me, then I just open up and just yappity yap yap, kind of like right now. But when I was with my art, I would just have visual conversations. So I never felt lonely when I was alone. Even now, I look for solitude. I'm going to Chicago in 4 weeks from now. And I had a friend ask if they could go with me. And I was like, I actually am looking forward to the drive alone. And I said, please don't be offended. But I didn't even invite my mom.
Yeah. So, well, I think lots of times people who are creative need processing time.
Oh my God, say that.
I know I do.
Oh, I need it. I crave it. I think there's a certain room at the Chicago Art Institute that I've been visiting years, probably 20 years. And there's this one painting I always go back to look at because I always perceive it differently. And I've been observing this painting for 20 years. And because we change, so our perception of things change. So if you're looking at something for a minute and you don't get it and you walk away frustrated, you cheated yourself. And you cheated that artist too, that put that piece out there in the atmosphere. So if I could just tell people anything besides be true to yourself, I would say take your time. Just take your time. Like, timing is different for everybody. It has to be. So we should stop judging ourselves by someone else's timing, for them. So.
Not always easy to do, though, Erin.
It's difficult.
It's not difficult. Easy to do.
But people should do more research with that. I was reading an article. It was in an art magazine, maybe Art in America or something like that. Maybe it was Vogue, actually. It might have not even been a fine art magazine, but maybe it was Vogue, which I see Vogue as an art magazine. Vogue is art to me. But it was talking about how they were looking at these different artists and they were in the same age bracket. And it talked about how on average artists tend to peak, not in their 20s or 30s, but 42.
Oh, wow.
42 is the average peak age for artists. And I'm like, I've been beating myself up all this time and I'm only 38. Like, but I didn't see myself as only 38. I'm like, damn it, I'm 38. I'm middle-aged. I got to, do this, that, and the other.
You are not middle-aged. I'm going to tell you that.
Feels like it sometimes when I wake up and I'm like, oh, not 18 anymore. But whatever age I'm at, I like to joke about my age now. So I'll say things like, I've always been an old woman. I really have. I've always
had an old soul. Okay.
So I used to say that about myself, even as a teen, like, I'm an old woman anyway. That way, when I become one, it won't really matter because I've always been one. There's an old woman trapped deep inside of me. And she takes the lead a lot and I appreciate her. And I even tell people, like, you need to get some older friends. Why is all your friends in your generation? What are they really teaching you? We're all learning the same things. We're all processing the same way. You need some older friends that can look at the situations we're crying about and be like, child, I did that. And it looked like this. And it was worse because we didn't have the support that you had while we were going through this. People need to get some friends from a variety of generations. Get you some friends that are 5, 10, 20, 30. Get some friends that are twice your age. You know, it is such a beautiful benefit, you know. So definitely.
So I have one last question for you. And what advice would you give, any advice to your younger self, given what you know now about art, mental health, etc.? What advice would you give that younger Erin?
Man, there's so much I've learned since that little baby girl. I love that question, actually. Well, the one I would say primarily is be true to yourself. I think for the most part, I did a good job at that, but I had weak moments, you know, especially because, you know, when your family is kind of split up and you don't always have, you know, when you're in a single family household, a single parent household, excuse me, while that single parent may be very effective, they don't always have time to sit and encourage all the time. They don't always have time to spill out all the tools because they're busy trying to take care of the unit, you know? So oftentimes our family meetings are when we're driving, you know, because I don't have time to sit around a couch and let's gather around and let's chop potatoes together and peel carrots together. We don't, I'm raising 3 kids by myself. I don't have time for that. So I'm like, look, while we on the way to such and such, listen to what I say right now, you know? Yeah. We don't always have time to kumbaya it out, you know? So
yeah,
I would say
I hear
my younger self, stay true. And then something that I tell my students now that I didn't know until I was a professor is your older self is looking at you.
Oh, interesting.
Right now. Your older self is looking at you. Don't disappoint them. They're watching you right now. So if I would have known that as a younger person, I would have done so many things differently, especially when it came to certain relationships that ended up being toxic. Yeah. So I would say that to my younger self. Your 38-year-old self is looking at you, 18-year-old. Yeah, I am officially 20 years associated with this place, you know? So that's what I would have told myself, you know, back then. So I tell my students that now.
So it's interesting. I'm not going to really explain how I came across them because that was sort of happenstance, but I ended up listening to this album called Heal, and it's by a band that has kind of a mix of US and Korean folks, and one of the songs is Childhood. And in that song, it really speaks to what you just said.
Yeah.
About looking back. And then as you look forward, quit having excuses for what you didn't do and just move on.
Yeah. And just move on, maybe see if it'll work better for you now. Like,
right.
You know, I was a traditional college student, age 18 to 22, and then 20 to 24 for grad school, you know, but my mom was 50 when she graduated and she did well. So I sometimes think about that too. Like, what would education, that experience have looked like for me past the age of 25 if I started past the age of 25, you know? I would have had probably a different level of confidence, you know? But at the same time, I don't regret going to school, and I did, because in graduate school, I became pregnant my last year and had my first child 2 weeks after I graduated.
Oh, wow.
2 weeks. Yeah. 2 weeks after I graduated. So I don't regret the road that I took, because when parenting and when relationships became difficult, if nothing else, I had my education and my career to fall back on, to guide me, to cushion me, you know, to comfort me. If I didn't have anything else, some women, when they got divorced, had to start all the way over. I didn't have to leave my home. I I didn't even have to get rid of the dog. We stayed where we were. I had my career. When the pandemic was happening, I was a single mother of 3, but we lacked for nothing. We lacked nothing. We were grateful. I loved the time that I had with my kids under the pandemic. We grew a garden together. We played at the park all the time. We bought outdoor toys. It was rough sometimes mentally, but overall, we just really enjoyed each other's company. But I don't know if it would have been the same if I didn't have the comfort and the cushion of my career and my education and my creativity.
It's so lovely to hear that your mother went to school later. My mom, she constantly would tell us about, you'll always have your education. You should always be able to self-support no matter what. And she was really adamant. And one, I think she felt like she never, went on to school. But bigger is, she didn't tell us until literally I was in my 30s when my mother told me about how her mother was impacted by her lack of education and lack of choices.
Yeah.
And so my mother just was hell bent that we all would not face that. At the expense of her doing it herself, she wanted to see us succeed.
And my kids will do even better than me, because there's certain things that I'm not afraid to share with them that I think in previous generations you had to be quiet about. And I'm like, nope, you should know this so that you don't know this about me so you don't do it. And I don't know, things are just the same and different right now when it comes to raising children. Support, that's always going to be a must. That's going to be necessary, but it looks different now, because back in the day it was what happens in this house stays in this house, but now it's like, no, something goes wrong, you tell as many people as you can, and you stand up for yourself in this way. And there's so many barriers that have been broken down from previous generations, and they'll continue to be. And I love that. I love change. I look forward to change. Maybe because as a kid, change was so abrupt in some ways traumatic that I was just used to change. We changed schools a lot. We changed households sometimes. So while change was sometimes traumatic, it shaped and molded me to be able to adjust to changing situations when they happened. This happened. Okay, well, time to get on the ball. Got to make it work, instead of freezing up and being like, oh my God, I can't do this. Those things that no longer serve me, at one point in time, they were negative, but I've taken them and made them a positive thing in my life, So everything wasn't awful, but as a kid, you don't really have a say-so about your circumstances. With my kids, I want to know their opinion. I want to know your thoughts. I put them in therapy because I want them to be able to talk to someone that they feel comfortable about. The thing is, people feel like the kids should come and, oh, you can tell me everything. Well, of course they can. But what people don't realize is kids don't want to tell you everything for fear that they might make you sad.
Right.
I don't want to see mom sad, so I'm just not going to tell her. But see, if I get my kids a therapist, that's a non-biased individual. They actually feel more comfortable telling them things because they're not fearful that they might break their heart. So people should do that more too. Get them kids in therapy, even if you feel like your life is picture perfect. Just because you never know what they're dealing with internally. So that was one thing I wish I had more of as a kid, but my parents just didn't know because, we grew up.
It wasn't a thing then.
It wasn't.
And I'm older than you are, Erin, but it just, I don't know if anybody was in therapy. Of course, we didn't know about it, but it was just not a thing.
That part too.
Yeah. And I reflect back and feel like, I could have done better with my own kids as well. For sure. So kudos to you that you're doing that.
The resources that are available now,
Right. That probably probably that was true. And I also didn't know how to approach it. I probably did it a little bit like a bear in a china closet, trying to, you need to do this instead of why it was a positive thing. But I think now I love that it's so much more accepted to say, yeah, I have a therapy appointment, I have this, etc.
Yeah.
And I think we all benefit. I concur. Because I have anxiety and depression, especially seasonal affect, like really bad.
Yeah. I listen, I relate. I totally get it. So, it's funny you say that because sometimes I'll post on Facebook during the winter seasons. I'll be like, hey, you guys, for those of you that are experiencing the winter blues, try eating these foods. Try eating this. And I will write a whole list and be like, these are actually mood boosting foods and mood boosting supplements. Take your vitamin D, take vitamin C with vitamin D and vitamin B, and you will be surprised. It'll work wonders
for you.
It just makes a small difference,
Yeah.
But sometimes it's about what we eat.
True that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me. I really appreciated it. And I love your art. I think it's, and I like, can you hold up the one with the string coming out of it so I can really appreciate it?
Yeah. And actually, I got this one basket hanging up above it. That's hilarious.
Look at that. Isn't that so cool?
Thank you.
It makes it, that 3D effect makes it so awesome.
It is so much fun when it's hanging on a wall.
Yeah.
And you get to see it cascading down the wall.
Yeah. Very cool.
And I did that last summer. I became a brand ambassador for an art supply company called Royal Talons. And I just started, even in the midst of a lot of mental turmoil, I was painting ferociously. I did more paintings in one summer than I ever did at one time in my life last summer. And it was during a really difficult time, but I'm so grateful that even during that time, my creativity was flowing. It was flowing just like the paint, so.
It definitely sounds like that's how you process.
I think it is. I've always been the kind of person, even in college breakups and things like that, I would go to work. I mean, I would just go to work in the studio. And that was my process. So then I had to be like, okay, how do I channel that energy even when I'm feeling good? Because some people, when they feel good, they're more relaxed. And when some people like me, you're feeling bad and it's like, oh, it's time to just paint. But I wanted that same energy even when I was feeling good or moderate. So I've been able to make that happen as well.
Very cool. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And I appreciate our time together, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Me too. I'm so happy I got to meet you. Yay.
Yay.
Thank you.
Right. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for joining us today. It is an honor to talk with these amazing creators. You can see and read the artist's work in The Shallot, our journal of mental health, art, and literature, or on our website, thelayeredonion.com. Thank you.